All right, buddy. Am I doing the intro?
Sure
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Melvor Idol live broadcast revealing the upcoming expansion Into the Abyss. I'm here with the lead developer, Malcs, of course. How you doing, Mr. Malcs?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. And Wooly, thank you so much again for coming on to do a stream. It's really good to be able to finally talk about Into the Abyss in detail. I'm very excited for what we have in store here. And I'm so excited to finally get into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of, let's just start with a overview. Let's talk, especially comparing this to the previous expansions. We have Atlas of Discovery, the most recent one, and then before that, the first one was Throne of the Herald, excuse me. So if you guys have played both expansions, you would know that Throne of the Herald and Atlas of Discovery are a bit different, we'll say, in terms of the progression, how the player goes through and chooses to engage with the content. So for this expansion, Into the Abyss, are we looking at something more similar to Throne of the Herald, more similar to Atlas, or something kind of in the middle, or entirely different? What are we looking at?
So for this expansion, we've definitely gone down the Throne of the Herald route. This is an end game expansion, and everything you're going to find in this expansion does come after you defeat Bane. What we've kind of seen through going through the Throne of the Herald release and the Atlas of Discovery release is that although there's a place for content between level 1 to 99, it is quite limiting because the game is already balanced around, all the items you get and everything that you can acquire. The game is already balanced in a way where getting from level 1 to 99 is already balanced. So for Into the Abyss, we've gone for end game. So after you defeat Bane, everything in this expansion will come straight after that. And it's just an entirely new experience. What we've kind of done here as well is we've accidentally made it almost twice as big as Throne of the Herald in terms of content. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds pretty awesome. So the main, the creme de la creme of this expansion is obviously going to be the Abyss, right? As the name would suggest. So can we go into that? How is the Abyss going to shape the overall gameplay of the player? Is it going to be like everything is inside of the Abyss, or is there stuff that's outside that also progresses into the Abyss? Like, I didn't mean to say the expansion name again, but is everything largely contained inside of the Abyss, or is there going to be other elements that also outside can affect it?
You're going to find pretty quickly with this expansion that the word abyss is everywhere. So as we explain stuff, abyss here and abyss there, you're gonna be tired of the word abyss by the end of this stream, but trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. So the way it kind of ties in with the general gameplay is that after you defeat Bane, it's kind of released the power into the Melvor world where Zon, who is the Abyssal King, has decided to take advantage of Bane's demise, and he's trying to bridge his Abyssal realm with the Melvor realm, and he's basically just trying to take over the main Melvor realm. So what happens is you have to descend into the Abyss, that's where the name comes from, and eventually delve as deep as possible, fighting so many different monsters and bosses along the way to eventually fight Zon and basically stop him from taking over the Melvor world. So it's completely separate from everything else. And we use the word realm here because it's kind of like a new mechanic that we've developed, kind of separate regular content from Abyss content. So what you're going to find is that as you enter the realm, it's kind of like a completely separate path to your regular, say, Throne of the Herald progression. You kind of see it as you kind of level up to level 99 and defeat Bane, you can either go one way and go and defeat the Herald, or you can go another way and defeat Zon. They're kind of like two completely separate individual expansions and content, which kind of allows us to play around with a lot more new and unique mechanics without kind of interrupting the balance of the other content in the game.
Interesting. So this is a largely combat-centric expansion, is what I'm picking up on.
Yeah, so it's pretty much very much combat-based. However, every single skill that you find in the base game is getting new content. But is very much kind of thematically based around combat, sort of similar to Throne of the Herald, but there is a lot of non-combat stuff that you can do.
Cool. Speaking of the skills in total, will the base level of the skills have any impact on the abyssal content, or is it purely the abyssal level, which we didn't really mention that? Hey, surprise, your skills will have a separate level called the abyssal level. So is that the only factor in how well you can perform in the abyss, or do your base skills also have some kind of impact?
So your base skills do somewhat have an impact. So what you do kind of need to do is you have to get your base skill level to 99 before you can start training on the Abyss content in there. So for example, if you want to start working on woodcutting stuff in the Abyss, you do have to get your woodcutting skill level to level 99. And then you can finally start leveling up your Abyss levels. Now, what an Abyss level is, it's our kind of way of scaling the game in a different aspect. Because I've seen a lot of people who want extra level caps above level 120, but we can't really do that unless we force people to purchase Throne of the Herald, because that's where the level 120 cap comes from.
Right.
So we've developed a new level system called Abyss levels, which is kind of completely separate and individual to your skill levels, which allows you to kind of horizontally scale per se. So as you get into the Abyss, you'll start working on the abyssal content, which gives you abyssal XP. Or you're going to be sick of this word. And that will unlock all your content. So it's kind of a completely separate leveling system. Everything is gated by your Abyss level in a skill. And you can basically take it in your own direction.
Cool. So regular skills, all we get from leveling them up is just, you unlock new content, and then it's going to have a higher XP rate, or the stats on the gear is going to be slightly higher. That's more or less the normal progression that anyone expects, in an RPG in general. So
yeah,
but another aspect that people expect in RPGs, skill points. Are we getting skill points for abyssal skills?
We are getting skill points. So we are playing around with the idea of adding skill trees to the expansion. So every single skill that has abyss levels in this expansion gets its own skill tree. Now, when I say skill tree, it's not like your ARPG Path of Exile skill tree where there's 426 million different paths that you can take.
Right.
We're very simple in the way we implement mechanics. So when you level up an abyss level in a skill, you get a skill point, and you can assign that skill point to that skill's skill tree. And that will unlock more like modifiers or bonuses for that skill. Now, by the time you get to level 60, which is the maximum abyss level in this expansion, you'll have all of the nodes on the skill tree unlocked. So there's no real decision making in terms of like what you're going to miss out when you get to the end. You can determine what path you take and how you get there. But as you get to the end, you'll have all the nodes. There's no regret if you miss something.
Cool. Are we expecting these nodes to be kind of like astrology? Because that's the closest thing to a skill tree in the game right now, honestly. So is it in terms of that power level where it's, a little bit XP boost, a little bit mastery boost, and then some extra like resource doubling or whatnot? Or is it, some of that, but some other extra shenanigans in some of the skill trees?
Yeah, so the non-combat ones are very much like that. You get some more like Abyss XP or Mastery XP or some like unique bonuses for that skill itself. So they're very much similar to astrology and how it powers up the skill. Combat does have quite a few unique aspects to it. Combat was pretty fun to kind of determine what kind of skill points you want, like what kind of modifiers you want to like, say you want to get evasion to a certain type of debuff, or you want to do more stun damage or something like that, kind of determining what kind of path you want to take there. But non-combat does kind of follow a pretty similar aspect to astrology.
Interesting. And I'm guessing that the XP curve is not the same. I'm assuming level 1 to, or maybe the XP rates are way lower, because in normal RuneScape, or Melvor, excuse me, based on RuneScape, the 1 to 60 grind, it's not really a grind, right? It happens pretty quickly. So are we expecting obviously a larger amount of time to get to level 60 Abyss in a skill?
Yeah, you definitely are. So off the top of my head, I think the maximum XP for level 60 Abyss is like 5 billion XP, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Getting from level 1 to 2 is like 1.2 million XP or something around that aspect. But don't worry.
2?
Yep, don't worry. The XP rates do scale in a way that gives you a lot of XP as you progress, but we've definitely gone big number.
Big number. I'm about to say big number better.
We found it quite a lot of fun when you kind of come back to like from an offline session. It's like, you've earned 150 million XP, and I'm like halfway to my next level, and it's like, oh, okay.
That is gonna be fun for sure. I was not expecting that. That's awesome. What interests me the most is, like you said, everything that you do in the Abyss is just for the Abyss. Well, actually, you didn't phrase it like that. You phrase it, when you go into the Abyss, your existing stuff plays a very minimal, if any, role in what you do in the Abyss. I didn't ask, does what you do in the Abyss have any effect on things outside of the Abyss? Does
Yeah,
it go
so
both ways?
what we've kind of done is all of your bonuses and modifiers and all that from level 1 to 99, and even like some from Throne of the Herald, you can take that into the Abyss. So like your interval modifiers or
Okay,
some gear or something similar, you can take that into the Abyss and use it, but what you'll quickly find is that you have to use what we give you to actually progress through the
sure.
Abyss. And then everything you find inside the Abyss won't really have any effect
Cool.
outside of it. So it's kind of its own tangent.
So
It's
we're
kind of its own
essentially, it's kind of like a
isolated content.
prestige in a way, in a sense. It's kind of like you're prestiging your account, but
Yeah,
you're still keeping everything the same, right? You're going into the abyss and you're
yeah.
kind of like starting fresh, right? Starting a new character
Kind
in
of
a
like
way.
a light version of Prestige where I guess you can kind of see it starting at level 1, which is the Abyss level 1, but you still keep your bonuses from before. So you still have like the power that you've acquired getting there, but you just have to use what we give you to kind of progress. And a good example of this is we're implementing something called damage types into the game. So damage types are a new mechanic where we can kind of separate regular content from Abyss content. So when you get into the Abyss, all of the monsters inside there are going to use a damage type called abyssal damage. Now,
No way.
abyssal damage, abyssal damage is going to destroy you if you don't have the correct gear. Your
Okay.
damage reduction gear is going to have no effect on abyssal damage. You're going to need to acquire gear that has abyssal resistance. And to fight these monsters, you yourself are going to have to use abyssal damage. So you're going to quickly find as soon as you step inside the abyss, you need to start creating the gear that would give you because you've got your weapons and stuff aren't really going to have any effect. And it's allowed us to kind of push the boundaries on what combat is in the expansion. And we can kind of go higher damage numbers, higher resists, more danger. But
More numbers. Let's
I
go.
will say, just in case, everything is idleable. You can idle everything in this
Let's
expansion.
go.
There's no active content. You still need to prepare for the content. Everything is idle. The only thing that isn't really idle is the final boss. Kind of like the Herald from Throne of the Herald.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I remember that was a bit of a tricky situation. I don't remember if it was when Bane was first released or if it was Throne of the Herald, the DLC was released. But I remember people were like desperately trying to crunch numbers in spreadsheets. Like, is this idleable, guys? Can we finally do it idleable? It's like, no, bro, you're like 2 DR off. You got to wait. So that's pretty cool that we can just go straight in and not really have to worry about losing too much, like losing. I'm assuming you would lose items like in regular game mode. On the default game mode, you're gonna die in the abyss. You lose some of your abyss gear. There's a chance to.
Yeah.
So
just still that single chance. Yeah.
cool. Speaking of combat, just to give you guys some reference, the viewers, there are going to be 96 new monsters, 15 pets, 12 new combat areas, 14 new Slayer areas, which are not just regular combat areas. So 26 new total combat areas. That's just regular stuff. 4 abyssal strongholds, which we will cover in just 1 second, I'm sure. New magic spells, new prayers, and then of course all the non-combat stuff. 12 new trees, 18 new fish, 12 new logs, 30 fire making. Guys, come on, fire making. Everybody knows fire making is not the skill to train. Everybody knows that. Come on, what does fire making do? Nothing. Anyway, cooking, mining, smithing, thieving. Every skill in the game is going to get something new in the expansion. But going back to combat, abyssal strongholds. Unless I'm jumping the gun here, do you want to talk about that? Can we break down what are we expecting in an abyssal stronghold? How is it different from a regular dungeon?
Yeah, so a stronghold is a piece of new content that's coming to Melvor. We're actually adding 4 regular strongholds to the base game with this expansion update, which is actually going to be included in the base game. So you don't actually need to purchase the expansion for the 4 base game strongholds.
There you go.
And then you have an extra 4 strongholds inside the abyssal content. So basically, what a stronghold is it's kind of like a very long dungeon, but there's a couple of twists to it. So I spoke earlier about damage types. We're adding new damage types to the games. We have normal damage for your regular content, and you have abyssal damage for your abyssal content. What a stronghold adds is something called pure damage. And what pure damage is something that you yourself cannot get resistance for. So you're kind of going into a dungeon with monsters that you've already faced, but you don't have any resistances. So it's all about DPS. You have to try and find the highest DPS build possible to kind of get through this as efficiently as possible. Kind of removes the aspect of needing to acquire resistance and where resistance, you kind of just go full damage numbers on it. And we've also adjusted the damage numbers inside these strongholds, so it's actually possible. And then the rewards for Strongholds is something called an enhancement. Now, coming to the game, there's something called enhancement slots, and you have 3 of them. 3 of them that you can equip. Enhancements are basically like passive bonuses to various aspects of the game. So as you complete Strongholds, you'll get enhancements that you can equip, and they give you unique modifiers or a couple of bonuses for certain skills, and you can have 3 equipped at the same time. So just a bit more power and a bit more reward for your efforts.
Interesting. So are these tying into, for the abyssal content, we have the corruptions, which I think that is the abyssal equivalent of the enchantment, or those are 2 separate things? My apologies. They're 2 separate things.
Corruptions are actually part of the new combat skill that we've got added.
Called corruption. That would make a lot of sense. I just had to scroll down a little more in the document. I would have seen that. My apologies. So I'm jumping the gun on that. Is there anything else you wanted to cover with the Stronghold? That sounds awesome. So you're going in. I was going to say a phrase I probably shouldn't have said. You're going to go in, massive damage. That's all you want. Who cares about DR? Who cares about the spike, the earth layered shield? Who cares about your little ring? No one cares about that stuff. You're going balls to the wall, DPS. Said it anyway. So that seems very fun to just make sure that you have the exact right gear that you need. Just go for it, go for it, go for it. And then you get some pretty cool passive rewards coming out of that. So just talk more about abyssal stuff specifically, because this is called Into the Abyss. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. How many new skills are we getting? We're getting 1 new non-combat, 1 new combat.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So you're getting a combat skill and a non-combat skill. The important thing about these skills is that they're exclusive to the abyssal realm. So they don't have standard skill levels. They're only abyss levels. So you can't actually use them in the base game leading up before you get into the abyss. You need to get to the abyss first, and then you unlock those skills and you can use them. Gotcha.
So you want to break them down a tiny bit? Like, what is the main gameplay loop? Is it just like another gathering skill? You just click on the tree, wait for it to finish, or is there more layers to these skills?
So the non-combat skill is something called harvesting. Now, harvesting is kind of like an updated version of mining per se. It is a gathering skill. So it is one of those skills where you just click it's called a vein that you harvest, and you harvest materials from it. So a couple of differences with this is that harvesting has something called intensity. Each vein has a certain amount of intensity, and as you continue to harvest it, that intensity increases. Now, as you increase the intensity, you get different materials and resources from that vein. It's basically wanting you to idle the vein, get all the resources, then use them in, I guess, other aspects of the game. Harvesting is a very core skill for the Abyss. A lot of crafting skills use the resources that come from it. So it's definitely going to be one of the first skills you go to. Plus, it's a lot of unique items that come from it.
Cool. So the combat skill called Corruption, which we talked about earlier, there is, I don't know how much you would like me to talk about it. I have a document here that I'm looking at with a bunch of stuff, but it seems like we are also getting some sort of passive benefit from training Corruption. So go ahead and break it down. I'm sure there's quite a few layers to this skill. So Corruption, the combat skill.
So the Corruption is a skill, a new combat skill that basically does provide you with, I guess, like a randomized buff as you are fighting a monster. One thing you will notice straight off the bat into the Abyss is that fights will take longer than I guess you're kind of used to, mainly because the health of all the monsters are a lot higher. Now, what we've added Corruption as like a passive buff skill. So what happens is in combat, you have something called a Corruption bar. And as you attack and hit the enemy, this bar fills up. Once that bar gets to 100%, you are provided with a random buff for the rest of the fight. Now, a couple of kickers with this skill. The buff is random, so there's like a predefined list of unique effects that you can get, and once you hit 100%, it'll roll and give you one of the certain buffs. A tricky aspect of it is that monsters that you fight also have Corruption. They also have a Corruption bar. They can also get the buff if the fight goes too long.
Interesting.
Now, something interesting or something important to note about these random buffs is there's no damage altering buffs. So you don't have to worry about idling a monster and having to worry about a certain small percent that they'll get a damage buff that will kill you. So there's no damage buffs.
Sure. Just talking about the max hit, right? There is like attack interval and evasion rating and that kind of stuff. So there's obviously combat centric, but not like he's just talking about the max hit in general. You know, if you guys play the game, obviously you know that when you're trying to idle something, you have to hit this exact threshold or higher, or else you're gonna potentially die. So he's just talking about max hit specifically.
Yeah, you're not going to go into combat and be like, oh, there's a 1% chance that this monster could get a 10% damage buff or max hit buff, and I'm going to die. So you don't have to worry about that. But it's a really cool concept because it kind of, as the fight goes longer, especially with bosses, you get this random buff and you kind of feel a lot more powerful as you get there. It's quite fun as well to level up. And seeing all the different bonuses that you get, kind of put it as ancient relics, but into like a skill form for combat. That's kind of how you can kind of put it.
Cool. And will every monster just be grand? Is it like prayer XP in a sense where you just deal damage and then you get some prayer XP off of that? Or do you have to meet some specific monster type to then gain corruption XP? How does the actual training of the skill?
So what happens is once your bar gets to 100%, or once a monster's bar gets to 100%, they become corrupted, which gives them the buff. Now, the way you train corruption is that you have to kill corrupted monsters. So the monster has to be corrupted when you kill it, and then that will give you the abyssal XP for the skill. We've also got ways where you can kind of force a monster to spawn corrupted. So there's no need to worry about overpowering it or killing it too quick. So you can kind of just like focus on certain monsters and they'll always be corrupted for you. But yeah, it's a slightly different alteration to.
Interesting. So you can choose whether, given your current power level, right? If you don't want the monster to be corrupted all the time, you're not going to get the XP for the skill, but it'll be an easier fight overall. And likewise, if you're super strong, you just want to AFK farm, grind out some corruption levels, you can just force it to always be a corrupted monster. Interesting. So it's kind of like
pretty much
choosing to be on a Slayer task in a sense,
yeah, pretty similar.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So we already talked about skill trees. We briefly covered them. Is there anything else you want to touch on skill trees aside from, do we get one skill point every X levels, or is it once a level with an abyssal skill, or how does this work?
You get one skill point per abyss level. So there's 59 skill points to spend. 59 because you start at level 1, max level is level 60, so there's 59 levels difference. So you get one level per level to spend.
So there are 60 nodes per abyssal skill?
Nah. Some of them cost like 2 points, some of them cost 4 points.
Okay.
We could not determine 60 nodes for every single skill.
I was going to say, that's a lot of nodes that we're going to be looking at here. And then mastery XP, that's something people obviously are invested in, the completionist grind and whatnot. Is mastery any different in abyssal XP, abyssal skills versus regular stuff? How does the mastery system work?
Yeah, so it's very similar. However, it's like the theme of the Abyss is that it is separate from the base game. So once you go into the Abyss, you're going to have like a separate mastery. So you can have like your own mastery pool just for the Abyss, your own mastery pool bonuses just for the Abyss. You spend that pool on just Abyss content. So you can't train your mastery, say, on regular content, level up that mastery pool and then spend it on abyssal content. You have to do the abyssal content to get mastery in there, to get mastery pool. So it is separate. It's still exactly the same system. Nothing's really changed in that aspect. It's just, separated from the base game.
Awesome. Cool. We, as far as I can tell, have covered the majority of the big picture stuff with this expansion. Is there anything else I'm missing before we dive into player questions? Is there anything with the new game mode, or not the new game mode? I'm sorry, adventure mode, ancient relics mode. Those are also going to be options for this expansion. Yep. So that's awesome for you guys that like those different game modes. You like to train multiple accounts at the same time. You do have those options. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Go into those. Yeah. So I'll go through two more things about combat. And then I can see chat. I'm going to get into what's happening with the game modes as well. So in regards to prayer in the Abyss, so when you get into the Abyss, you have like 20 or something new prayers to use. They use something called soul points. Soul points are obtained from killing monsters who drop souls. So it's basically like bones, but they drop souls instead. So you can't actually use your prayers from the base game inside the Abyss. You have to use what we give you inside there.
You have to. So you can't stack them. Prayer. So normal prayer does nothing.
No. So because it costs soul points to actually use the prayers, we kind of, because kind of run into the issue of when you kind of enter the Abyss and you have like all your prayers, especially throwing the Herald, they're quite powerful, and everyone has like over 10 million prayer points. So
a lot of prayer
kind of devalued the whole purpose of like, acquiring points to spend on prayers. So we have gone to the direction of use the prayers we give you, fight the monsters to maintain the prayer points. So there's that in regards to prayers. Combat as well. we have decided to implement a new combat triangle for the Abyss. So what we've actually done here, just to make it a bit more challenging, is we have reversed it. So all the content inside the Abyss, the combat triangle is reversed. Now, what I mean by that is that melee will now beat magic, magic will now beat ranged, and ranged will now beat melee. So it might take a bit of time to get used to, but we thought it'd be like a fun switch up. We've also added a lot of information in game, so you can see the combat triangle in game. So if you ever kind of get confused about what's going on, it's there. All the combat areas say it uses this combat triangle. You can click the combat triangle and it shows you exactly what's going on. Just kind of like switch it up and make it feel a bit different in there, because the Abyss is very much, you know, the original concept of the Abyss started as like kind of like an upside down, kind of like a reversed aspect, and then it did grow into a much larger expansion.
The land down under, if you will, per se.
Pretty much. Basically, like if me in Australia, you know, I'm upside down. So
that's pretty awesome, though. I like what I've heard so far. It basically is like we were talking about. It's like you're starting a new character in a sense. When you dive into the Abyss, everything's fresh. You're getting in there. You get to choose, just like when you booted up Melvor the first time. You know, just pick and choose which skills you want to go for first, grind it the way you will. You don't have to worry about, oh, should I use my gear piece from like 8 years, not 8 years, the game's not been out for that long. But, you know, there are a lot of times, especially with Atlas of Discovery, I was like, okay, I need this exact gear set, but I acquired this item like a year ago. Where was it? Oh, it's right here. There's a lot of like extra thought process. With this, it seems like just go into the Abyss, have a good time. It's all abyssal. If it says the word Abyss on it, that's the stuff you're looking for. You know, it's pretty much that simple.
I'll go into the game modes. I know chat's been wanting to know exactly what's happening with the game modes in this expansion. So specifically an adventure mode to start off with. So we have kind of gone with a slightly different aspect to adventure mode going into the Abyss. So the original adventure mode is you level up your skills, you spend GP to unlock the skills, and you have that skill going forward. The issue we kind of ran into is when you get to the Abyss, you've already got all your skills unlocked. So you're kind of thinking, what exactly do you do with adventure mode if you've already got everything going there? So what's going to happen with adventure mode is that once you get to the Abyss, you still need to pay GP to unlock harvesting and corruption, but your skill levels are going to be capped at Abyss level 10. And you have to do combat, level up your combat skills to increase that level cap. So what's going to happen is, say, for example, your woodcutting is level 10, capped at level 10. Your combat skills, the main combat skills, like the damage ones, they can go above the level cap all the way to 60. So you have to train those skills above a certain threshold. Then you can spend the new currency in the Abyss called abyssal pieces to increase the level caps of your other skills. So it's kind of, I guess, going really combat oriented, where you have to get through combat to level up your non-combat skills. It kind of adds a interesting element where you kind of have to pick and choose what skill levels you want to increase the level cap for. And it kind of adds a lot more strategic element to it as well.
Combat only accounts are eating good after hearing that. That's what they like to hear. They're ready. They're ready to go.
And then we have adventure mode, ancient relics mode, sorry. So because of how popular ancient relics mode is, we have decided to actually put mechanics into the Abyss for ancient relic mode players. So it's not really that different to what you've seen. When you get to the Abyss, you're going to have another brand new set of ancient relics. 6 new relics for every single skill that has Abyss levels. You're going to level up your skills as normal, unlocking ancient relics along the way. And you have to defeat the Abyss depths to get your choice of 2 to unlock new skills. So once you beat depth number 1, you get, okay, what skill level do you want to increase the level cap for? Pick. So it is the same progression, the same randomized progression. I didn't want to change ancient relic modes too much. So it is very much similar to what you've already seen, but we've given you 6 new relics for 20 odd new skills. So like 120 new relics for you to find and make you even more powerful. And most of your existing relics, probably like 95% of them, work inside the Abyss. So you're not losing out on those.
That's awesome. And just to clarify, the depths would be the new Stronghold content, correct? Where you have to go through.
Nah, the depths are actually from the Abyss. to kind of like, it's like a new combat challenge that you have. It is basically like dungeons, but it's kind of like thematic where you're kind of going deeper and deeper into the abyss. Everything's getting harder and harder.
Okay.
So they're categorized into what's called depths. So once you beat a depth, you unlock the next tier of combat content. So that's kind of what you have to complete before you get to the final boss.
So there's a lot of new combat content is what I'm hearing. If you like combat, this expansion is definitely for you. Even if you don't like combat, there's still other stuff, obviously, but this is combat, baby. There are tons of stuff here. That's awesome. Cool. So there you go. If you guys like the alternate game modes, lots of stuff upcoming with that. So do we want to talk about a release date? Do we have a release date?
We do have a release date.
Are we talking about it now?
Do I want to share
it? Do we? I don't
know. So Into the Abyss is going to release on, let me double check my calendar. It is Thursday, the 13th of June.
Ooh.
And it's going to release on all platforms Melvor is available on at the exact same time.
Look at that.
And it's going to be $4.99 US, the same as all the other expansions.
There you go. Exact same. We loved it. No microtransactions, right? No cosmetics, no battle pass. You just get $5. That's the expansion. Boom.
Yep.
We'd love to hear it.
That's what you get.
We'd love to hear it. Although I would pay an extra $5 for some. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't. I don't know where I'm going with that. An extra pet or two. No. Cool. So release date. The majority of the content we've talked about. There is more to the expansion, obviously, than what we talked about here. This is just the overview of things. As far as I know, there will be more information coming soon in a written format. So if you guys want to check it out, is that correct?
Yes. So we'll have like a written format with more information on what we spoke about today, coming out either today or tomorrow. So just be sure to check like socials or Steam or whatever for your announcement.
Awesome. All right, June 13th. So write that down. Put it on your calendar. That was correct, right? June 13th? Yes, June 13th. Mark it down on your calendars. All right, let's go into a little bit of Q&A now. Let's start with the first question is from Lost Decoy. Has there been anything that you've ever had to cut, but you still want to find a way to work it in? Whether with this expansion or another expansion?
Yeah, a lot of stuff's been cut. We've had a lot of ideas for skills that we've wanted to add. A lot of ideas for content or the way we want people to progress to add, but we have definitely cut them. A couple of skills from RuneScape that people ask for to get our kind of take on it. We've had to like scrap because we just haven't found a way to actually get it in. Nothing specific, but there has definitely been a lot of stuff on the cutting board. But hopefully one day we can find a way to get it in.
Yep. All right, from Witch King 501, what is your favorite new item? And what does it do? And just to clarify, again, there were over 900, I believe the number was, new items. 1,000. 1,000. There you go.
1,000 new items, yeah.
So do you have a favorite?
It's not like your archaeology 250 items. It's 1,000 items that you're actually going to be using in the expansion.
Wow.
Good fun.
Out of 1,000 plus, do you have a favorite?
So there's a couple of items that I quite like. There is a specific item that we've added that I can't talk about. So you'll have to just figure that one out yourself when you get to the expansion. There's an item that we've added. It's kind of like the abyssal version of the Fez amulet, the Fury of the Elemental Zodiacs amulet, where you kind of have to go on like a similar grind or similar, progression to actually acquire this specific amulet, which is indeed quite powerful. It will be a bit grindy, but the reward will be very much worth it.
Interesting. That's what I like to hear. That's what I'm sure everyone watching the stream likes to hear. We want grind. That's why we're here. When's more grind going to come? Awesome. All right. From Rodigan, is there any synergy between the Into the Abyss base game, Into the Abyss, and then the base game similar to past DLCs? We've pretty much already covered all of this, but if you just want to clarify one more time, again, this is talking about specifically how does the Abyss content tie into the base game?
So it doesn't really. So we kind of wanted to go a direction of kind of being able to create an expansion that was quite individual from the base game. So everything you're going to find in the Abyss is kind of, just for the Abyss. It does kind of feel like a separate game, although it's not really. It is an expansion to the lore, an expansion to the content, an expansion to your progression. But in terms of like synergies, it doesn't really work backwards. We didn't want to run into a situation where someone who kind of comes into the Abyss, owns the abyssal items, like say the expansion, and then they don't own Throne of the Herald yet. So they do Into the Abyss, which has very powerful items. We can't really find a way to bring those back without kind of absolutely destroying the balance of any other content. We kind of wanted to create it separate so we could have fun and we could go powerful and we could not have to worry about destroying the balance elsewhere in the game. So it kind of allowed us a lot more freedom, per se.
I think that's a wise choice too, because speaking from my personal experience, I've already done everything there is to do in the game. I think it'll be refreshing to go in with a blank slate, essentially, rather than have stuff I'm gonna have to overlap. Like I talked about earlier, where's that one item again for this exact loadout? Like I need to be 5% more efficient, even 1% more efficient. I don't remember the item. I have to go find it. It's gonna be fun to just have everything and experience it and figure it out individually, separate from the base game. That'll be awesome. All right, the next question is from Feldspar of Sun. Will there be an option to toggle which DLCs a save uses upon creation? For example, playing with Atlas Discovery and Into the Abyss active, but not Throne of the Herald.
For specific saves, probably not. That gets quite messy when you're trying to manage 3 different expansions toggled for 8 different saves if you are playing like that. What we did add recently in the last month was a toggle in-game to globally toggle the expansions, which you'll have to use. And it's also quite hard because all of the game data, including expansions, is loaded before you even get to the character selection screen. So yeah, probably adding individual toggles for saves themselves probably won't be a thing.
Interesting. So you guys got to write a list down. Maybe we can have a mod. Maybe there already is a mod. I'm not sure. It just says, where is this item from? Oh, it's from that expansion. All right, I'm not using it. Something like that. You got to. Yeah. You want to challenge it, make a locked account in a sense, make all these self-imposed restrictions, got to stick to them, Okay, next question from Many People. I believe that from Many People. Their name is Many People. All right, there we go. Are there any updates on the progress of offline mode?
Yeah, so the offline client, so we have had to put that on hold just for a bit because we were trying to finish this expansion. Progress on it, though, is going quite well. So stage 2, which will provide like full offline functionality for like desktop clients, is at a point where it just needs like a bit more work to actually get sorted and testing, and then we can release it. And the good thing about that is stage 3 is basically bringing the same thing onto mobile. So mobile was fully offline. Mobile is going to be a bit harder to action because I think Apple and iOS have some specific issues that we have to sort out because they love their little closed ecosystem and have to follow their rules.
Cross-platform development.
Yeah, we hope to bring the offline client more updates to it after the expansion releases.
There you go. Okay, a couple more questions specifically from chat just now. If you guys have more questions, go ahead, go and type them in the chat. I think we are compiling a few more. The first one is from Assistant Administrator. Also, I messed up. It was from many people, literally from multiple people. That was not a username. That was my apologies. This is from Assistant Administrator. Anything on Abyss and Corruption skill cape perks? Can we have any tidbits, any nuggets of information?
Yeah, so skill capes in the Abyss is actually done a bit differently to your regular game. Skill capes and their bonuses actually come from the skill tree. So once you get all your skill points to level, your skill Abyss levels to level 60, you can unlock the final node on that skill tree, which is your skill tree, skill cape bonus. You won't be given an actual skill cape. Now, the reason for this is because there's so many skills in the game. Putting the bonuses into the skill tree means you can unlock that bonus when you get to level 60 in that skill without having to worrying about equipping and unequipping a certain skill cape. It also lets you have them all active. So if you're like halfway through getting to level 60, you can have those skill tree nodes unlocked with the skill cape bonuses, have them all active, and you don't have to worry about item management. So we've kind of gone down that route for this one. So it's kind of like a max cape that gradually increases, so you don't actually have to equip an item.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's curious to see how that's going to impact the general progression of things. Next question from Lucy, or L_UC_Y. Since we need new armor combat sets, will we get new slots for these and maybe more bank tabs for the new materials?
Potentially. We're still doing some testing, so we'll determine if we can get some new equipment sets. There probably will be. because of the increased sort of equipment management you have to do, especially if you're kind of playing outside the abyss and inside the abyss. You want to make sure it's easy for you. So yeah, you probably will get a couple more equipment slots to use. But yeah, we'll just have to figure out the best way to go about it.
Awesome. This next one is from HP12324. Will the true completionist cape and such be updated accordingly?
So there's not much to update for the true completion cape, mainly because the skill cape bonuses are inside a skill tree, so you don't actually have to have that skill cape. It doesn't really do anything once you reach true completion because your bonuses are already active. We do have a completion cape for Into the Abyss, so you can get that once you get 100%. But yeah, updating the true completion cape, we'll have to see what we do because it's not really a true completion cape. I think it's part of Throne of the Herald. I think they're talking about the superior cape of completion. Right. So it's kind of hard to kind of update it with Into the Abyss, especially if you don't have Into the Abyss, or you do have Into the Abyss and you don't actually have Throne of the Herald. So yeah, we'll have to try and figure out what to do with that one. But in terms of updating it, it doesn't really have any extra benefit because the skill.
Right, because the way it works now is you have the vanilla completionist cape, which is just obviously base game 100%. And then the superior cape, which is just extra DR, I think it has extra stats, but mainly extra damage resistance, like the main perk of using it. And that's for Throne of the Herald stuff. But Atlas of Discovery has its own completionist cape. And I believe you can still wear like the superior completionist cape, even if you don't have
you can.
Atlas of Discovery 100%. So
because those skill capes, their whole purpose was to combine all of the skill capes into one single item that you can just equip to have everything. But Into the Abyss already handles that for you. So there's not really a need to kind of bring it forward because you've already got that benefit.
There you go. And this is also from HP12324. This is a massive follow-up question. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Choc mint, peppermint, choc mint.
Peppermint, choc mint. Hey, that was the longest pot. He actually had to consider that. That was the longest pot. He was prepared for everything. The whole Q&A, just bam, 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 talking about stuff. Ice cream. This man takes his ice cream seriously. Make no mistake. All right, awesome. I believe that is about it for the Q&A and thus the stream. I don't think we've missed anything. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, so we're going to have a follow-up announcement with details in written form about everything. It's not going to be the only announcement we'll have, so we're going to take questions, of course, from people who may still have questions about how certain things work. We'll do follow-up announcements, follow-up teasers and stuff, just so you'll have all the information you need. Just so you can go into the expansion knowing exactly what's happening. So we're still going to be monitoring chat, and if you have any follow-up questions, please let us know, and we'll definitely answer those.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, that seems to be about it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you all for watching, being here, hanging out. I hope you are excited for the DLC. It's coming out less than a month, right? June 13th. So if my math is right, that is less than a month from now. So very soon, right around the corner, essentially. Thank you everyone for watching again. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.